It's 11:37 on Sunday evening, March 22nd, 2026. A Bombardier CRJ-900 is rolling down runway 4 on LaGuardia Airport, New York. It has just touched down, a routine arrival after a short trip from Montreal. 72 passengers are on board. The crew is exhausted, but the approach was stable. Everything looked normal. But somewhere in the darkness ahead, a fire truck is crossing the runway, and the pilots never had a chance to see it coming. Tonight, we are going to break down exactly what happened to Air Canada Express Flight 8646. Every decision, missed alert, critical second, and at the end, I want you to understand why this accident was not caused by one mistake, but a chain of failures, many of which had been flagged by investigators for years. So let's get into it. Welcome back. For those of you who are new here, my name is Sammy. I'm a commercial pilot looking for my first flying job as well as training to become a flight instructor. And on this channel today, we are looking at an aviation accident, understand what went wrong, and most importantly, what can we learn from it. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the two pilots who lost their lives that night. Captain Antoine Forrest from Quebec and First Officer Mackenzie Gunther. Both were professional aviators. Both were doing their jobs. This video is, first and foremost, a tribute to them. We analyze accidents not to assign blame, but so that their loss is not in vain. Right, let's set the scene. LaGuardia Airport. If you've ever flown into New York, because I haven't, you'll know this place. It's small, it's tight, it's busy. In fact, it handles over 32 million passengers every single year. And it does all of that with just 2 runways. The airport is sandwiched between Flushing Bay and the streets of Queens. There is no room for error. The aircraft involved was a Bombardier CRJ-900, a regional jet you've almost certainly flown on at some point. It's a narrow-body, twin-engine jet used on short-haul routes across North America. In this case, the specific aircraft was registered Charlie Golf November Juliet Zulu, a 20-year-old CRJ-900 long-range operated by Jazz Aviation on behalf of Air Canada Express. Jazz is one of Air Canada's regional partners, operating flights under the Air Canada Express brand. Flight 8646 had departed Montreal Trudeau International Airport earlier that evening. The flight itself was unremarkable. The crew had completed their approach checks. The aircraft was configured correctly, and by all accounts, they were on a stable approach to runway 4 at LaGuardia. But on the ground, something had already started to go wrong. Let me paint you a picture of what was happening at LaGuardia shortly before midnight. At 11:18 p.m., almost 20 minutes before our accident, a United Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 8 was attempting to depart LaGuardia on its way to Chicago. During the takeoff roll, anti-ice warning lights illuminated in the cockpit. The crew aborted the takeoff. They went around again. Same problem. The crew also detected a foul smell in the cabin, and so they declared an emergency. Now LaGuardia had a problem. There was no open gate available for this United aircraft. So the Airport Rescue and Firefighting Unit, known as ARFF, was dispatched. This included a fire truck designated as Truck 1, vehicle number 35 in the fleet, along with additional vehicles. Their job was to go and assist the United aircraft. This is all completely normal. This is exactly what ARFF teams are trained to do. But here is where the situation starts to become dangerous. Let me now walk you through the final 3 minutes and 7 seconds before the collision, based on what the NTSB has released from the cockpit voice recorder. 3 minutes, 7 seconds to impact. The CVR recording begins. The crew of flight 8646 is on approach. Everything is normal. Flaps are being configured. The landing checklist is underway. 2 minutes 17 seconds. LaGuardia Tower clears Air Canada flight 8646 to land on runway 4. This is routine. The crew acknowledges. The aircraft continues its descent. 1 minute 26 seconds. An automated call-out announces the aircraft is 1,000 feet above the ground. The crew is heads down, focused on the approach. They are in the final phase of flight, the most demanding part of any operation. 1 minute 3 seconds. And here is where it gets critical. An airport vehicle, we still don't know which one, makes a radio call to the tower. But that transmission is stepped on. It is interrupted by another transmission from another aircraft or vehicle, and the message becomes garbled. It is not fully received in the tower. This moment matters, because if that initial call had been heard clearly, the controller might have had more time to piece together the picture. 54 seconds. The crew of flight 8646 acknowledges the 500-foot call-out. They confirm a stable approach. From their perspective, everything is fine. 40 seconds. Truck 1 begins conversing with the tower. 25 seconds. Truck 1 requests clearance. Cross runway 4 at taxiway Delta. And now I need you to think about this carefully. At this point, a CRJ 900 is on short final to that exact runway. It is seconds from landing, and the controller has just cleared a fire truck to cross that same piece of pavement. 20 seconds. The tower clears truck 1 to cross runway 4. This is the mistake. How did it happen? We'll get to that. But let me finish the timeline first. 9 seconds. The tower realizes what is happening. The controller keys up. Stop, 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 stop. Truck 1, stop. The word stop is transmitted at least 10 times in those final seconds. 8 seconds. The sounds on the CVR suggest the CRJ 900 has touched down on runway 4. The aircraft is rolling at approximately 81 to 91 knots. That's between 90 to 105 miles per hour. 6 seconds. First Officer Gunther, who had been pilot flying for the approach, transfers control of the aircraft to Captain Forrest. This is a completely normal handover, consistent with standard operating procedures. 4 seconds. The tower again commands Truck 1 to stop. 0 seconds. The CRJ 900, traveling at over 90 miles per hour, impacts the ARFF fire truck on runway 4. The cockpit voice recorder goes silent 9 seconds after the collision. The aftermath was devastating, at least for the forward section of the aircraft. The fire truck struck the nose of the CRJ 900 with devastating force. The cockpit, the flight deck and forward galley section were essentially destroyed. Both Captain Forrest and First Officer Gunther were killed. They had no warning, no time to react. The truck appeared from the darkness at the speed of a highway collision. One flight attendant, seated in a jump seat just behind the cockpit door, was ejected from the aircraft on impact. She was found near the wreckage with serious injuries, but thankfully survived. In total, 41 people were taken to hospital, including passengers, crew members, and both occupants of Truck 1. The aircraft came to rest tilted near taxiway Echo, its nose gone. Footage from the scene showed the CRJ 900 looking like something had taken a bite out of the front of it. LaGuardia Airport was shut down for approximately 14 hours. Hundreds of flights were cancelled. It was the airport's first fatal accident in 34 years, and grimly, it happened on the exact same date as the last one. The US Air Flight 405 crashed in 1992. Now let's talk about what the NTSB has found so far, because this is where it gets complicated, and this is where I want you to pay close attention. The NTSB's investigation is still in its very early stages. We do not have the final answers, but the preliminary facts already point to what appears to be a classic Swiss cheese model accident. which basically means there were multiple layers of safety, each with holes all lined up on this particular night. Let's go through them one by one. The most obvious question is, how did a controller clear a fire truck to cross an active runway with an aircraft on short final? The NTSB has revealed that at the time of the accident, there were only 2 air traffic controllers working the tower at LaGuardia, and this was a midnight shift. At least one of those controllers was apparently handling multiple roles simultaneously. Normally, different controllers handle local traffic, so that's aircraft in the air and then aircraft on the ground, including vehicles on taxiways. But the NTSB has said that there is conflicting information about who was serving as the ground controller that night. The NTSB chair, Jennifer Homendy, said it plainly. It is not clear who was conducting the duties of the ground controller. We have conflicting information. There are also inconsistencies in the tower logs, including conflicting dates and times that investigators are still working to untangle. The NTSB has specifically flagged concerns about the midnight shift. They have raised the issue of controller fatigue on overnight shifts in multiple previous investigations. While they have stated there is currently no evidence fatigue was a factor here, it remains an open question. Remember that garbled radio call we talked about earlier? The one at 1 minute 3 seconds? That may have been Truck 1's first attempt to communicate with the tower. If the controller had received that call clearly, the entire sequence might have unfolded completely differently. They would have known Truck 1 was calling in much earlier, at a time when a go-around was still possible for the CRJ 900. Instead, that call was stepped on, blocked by another simultaneous transmission, and the tower remained unaware of Truck 1's intention until it was already far too late. Another harrowing, most troubling findings I find so far is that the ARFF vehicle, Truck 1, did not have a transponder. Now, a transponder is a device that broadcasts a vehicle's precise position. Many modern airports equip their ground vehicles with transponders so that controllers can see exactly where every truck is on their radar displays, and including aircrafts. This is especially important in low visibility or high traffic situations. At LaGuardia, the ARFF trucks had no transponders. Controllers were relying on less precise radar returns, described as blips, to track vehicle movements. Now here's the thing. Transponders on ground vehicles exist. Other airports use them. The NTSB has said specifically there are transponders on other trucks at other airports across the nation. In this case, they did not have any. This is not a new recommendation. Improving vehicle tracking on the ground has been an industry discussion for years. LaGuardia is equipped with one of the most advanced runway safety systems available, ASDE-X, which is the Airport Surface Detection Equipment Model X. This is a ground radar system specifically designed to detect conflicts between aircraft and vehicles on runway surface and automatically warn controllers. On the night of the accident, ASDE-X did not generate a warning. Why? Because several ARFF trucks were moving near the runway simultaneously, merging and unmerging, which confused the system's tracking algorithm. It could not create what it called a high confidence track on the vehicles, and that therefore no issues or alerts were issued. Think about the irony of that. A safety system specifically designed for this scenario, installed at one of the busiest airports in America, failed to fire because there were too many vehicles moving around. I want to step back for a moment. This accident didn't happen in isolation. At the time of the crash, LaGuardia was already under strain. A United Airlines emergency had just triggered the ARFF call-out. The tower was managing multiple aircraft, including at least one other, Frontier 4195, that was also being instructed to stop. The midnight shift was understaffed by normal standards, and somewhere in all that noise, chaos, a clearance was given that should never have been given. After the collision was captured on ATC audio, a controller was heard saying three words that have since echoed around the aviation world. I messed up. I want to be careful here. The NTSB has explicitly cautioned against pointing fingers at individual controllers. These people work in a heavy workload environment, day in, day out. The question investigators are asking is not just who made the error, but what conditions made that error possible. That is exactly the right question. Let me take a moment to talk about the two men in that flight deck. Captain Antoine Forrest was from Côte du Lac in Quebec. His great aunt told the Toronto Star that he never stopped, always taking courses, always flying, always pushing forward in his career. He had reached the left seat. He was doing what he loved. And First Officer Mackenzie Gunther had graduated from Seneca Polytechnic's Aviation Technology program in 2023, just 3 years before this incident. The first officer had joined Jazz Aviation immediately after graduation and was at the very beginning of what should have been a long career. There was nothing either of them could have done differently. The aircraft was on a stable approach, exactly as it should have been. The clearance had been given. They had no warning, no indication from any system that a vehicle was on their runway. When the truck appeared in the darkness, it was already over. The flags at Seneca Polytechnics were lowered to half staff. Now let's talk about what this means and what it connects to. This is, at its core, a runway incursion, one of the most dangerous categories of aviation accidents. The FAA defines a runway incursion as any occurrence at an airport involving the incorrect presence, aircraft, vehicle, or person on the protected area of a surface designated for aircraft landings and takeoffs. Runway incursions can and do happen all over the world. The deadliest aviation accident in history, Tenerife, in 1977 was a runway incursion. The scenario at LaGuardia has uncomfortable echoes of similar accidents. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada has noted that runway incursions have been on their watch list since 2010. This is not a new problem. This is a known problem, a recurring problem, and the tools to address it is transponders on ground vehicles as well as aircraft, but improved controller staffing procedures, more robust ASD systems. They exist. The NTSB investigation is ongoing. A preliminary report is expected within 30 days. We should be out by now, I believe. The full investigation will take considerably longer, but even at this early stage, the picture forming is one that will be familiar to anyone who has studied aviation safety, a tragedy that was preventable, built from a chain of smaller failures that each alone might not have caused harm. So where does that leave us? 2 professional pilots are now gone. A flight attendant is recovering from serious injuries. Dozens of passengers and emergency workers are dealing with the trauma of that night. A community of aviators are grieving, and investigators are now working through what appears to be a deeply complex web of system failures, procedural questions, and staffing concerns at one of the busiest airports in the United States. We will follow this investigation closely. As new information comes out from the NTSB, we will update you, because that is what we do here. We watch, we learn, and we do everything we can to make sure accidents like this are never repeated. To Antoine Forrest and Mackenzie Gunther, and to everyone affected by the events of March 22nd, 2026, this video is for you. Take care of each other. Take care of each other out there. Like always, follow me for more air accident investigations. Like the video if you found it useful. Comment your thoughts and subscribe if you already haven't. As always, blue skies, Sammy's fly.